Okay, here we go. Welcome to a brand spanking fresh episode of Soul Reboot. You know I'm your host, Alyson Charles. My next guest, she is a fierce force of light. And her boldness, courage, and willingness to be an industry trailblazer is truly helping bring a new paradigm to planet Earth. Oh, and she's also a best-selling author. We have a lot to dive into today, including money, love, all sorts of stuff. So say hello to Sahara Rose.
Oh, thank you so much for that kind introduction, Alyson. I'm so excited to be here. We've been talking about this moment for like weeks.
Yes, forever. And I am so grateful too, because you're truly a sister to me.
Likewise.
Yeah, ever since we first met, I know there's some sort of ancient something that goes on with us. And then on the whole other level, your family is from Iran. And so this Persian culture that you are is the one that resonates the most with me, although I'm not that this lifetime.
Yes.
I know I have been in other lifetimes. So let's actually start there, because in your family, you're the very first person to have been born in the US.
Yes.
And you have accomplished a lot of different things, which we're going to dive into as much as we can today. But I think what a lot of people know you for right now is your expertise with Ayurveda. So I have been so curious and waiting to ask you, what have you had to transcend in terms of your family or your parents? What you lined up with your work, was it really surprising to them?
Yes, I mean, this could be a whole like hour-long soul reboot, but my parents were immigrants, so they came in during the Iranian Revolution. So because of that, you know, their homes, livelihoods, everything were taken away from them. They came separately. They didn't know each other. They met in the U.S.
Okay.
So my dad went the very traditional path. He went to MIT. He went there for 10 years and got 3 PhDs.
What?
In nuclear engineering, laser physics, and then in finance.
Okay, like no wonder you're so smart. Like one of the things I love the most about you is how highly intelligent you are. Now I'm understanding.
Well, when I was a kid, my dad would say, don't talk to me unless it's logical. So if I wanted something, I would have to write a 5-paragraph paper, why I want this thing, 3 reasons why, and conclusion, and present it to him, whether it's I want a dog, I want this, that, always like logical. So because of that, I actually grew up wanting to be a lawyer, because I was like making cases for things all the time. Like if I cried, he's like, I don't understand anything you're saying. So I'd have to like behave like an adult. Wow. So that parent, my soul chose to make me very like analytical, knowledgeable, smart. My mom is the opposite. She is a very free spirit. She didn't really work in her life. She goes African dancing and drumming and, you know, she's such a Pisces and just like very just like floating around, like doesn't like rules, doesn't like, they're like polar opposites. So she taught me like the dance and the rhythm and the culture, and we would, you know, like when I wanted to start volunteering, I started volunteering in all of these different countries, like in Vietnam and Thailand.
Is that when you were backpacking everywhere?
That was the time I was backpacking. So I grew up like really smart, and then eventually something switched and I was like, what is the point of all of this? Because look, my dad is so successful and he's so stressed out all the time, and I don't want to be like that. So I was like, well, obviously money's not bringing happiness, because this guy's not happy. My mom doesn't have money, but she's happy. So I'm going to go that way. So then I started to just sign up for any NGO I could find and volunteer in all these different countries. And I was telling you,
and how old are you?
I was 15.
Okay.
Yeah. So then I really just got very into international human rights, and like, especially with child advocacy. So child sex trafficking and child soldiers and child labor. And that's what I thought I wanted to do. So then I went to school in DC to study that, and then like.
And now at this point, are your mom and dad really pleased with this decision?
Yeah, they thought that was great.
So this is good.
This is all good for them. You know, it's still like a lawyer, and then they always knew I was like very international. So they're like, okay, international lawyer, sure,
great, even better.
Yeah, but then but I never had any intention actually to make money. I wanted to just be a nonprofit person forever, and to be honest, I thought I would just marry someone and rely on them for the rest of my life, because that's what I had seen everyone around me, and that's what like Persians are kind of raised to do.
Okay.
But then when I started studying and I started working in like NGOs offices, and I saw like, I don't want to work in an office. I don't want to be like doing spreadsheets all the time and raising money for the fundraiser. I want to be involved with the people, helping them, communicating with them, seeing what they need. I don't think a lot of the NGO action that they're putting into these countries is actually what's working for them. It's working from a Western perspective. But, you know, if I come and send a bunch of, you know, science textbooks to Africa, they don't have running water. It's like, what's the point? So I loved the idea of like customized helping people. And then,
which you still do today, which we'll get to.
Exactly. So, and that's what Ayurveda is. So throughout this, I became very into health and nutrition. I became a raw vegan. And as a raw vegan, I essentially became really sick after 8 months. And at that time, I was super vata. So vata is like the air energy. So at first I would kind of faint. I was cold, dry, constipated, bloated, gassy, turning into no period for 2 years.
Wow.
Turning into all of these like gastrointestinal issues, and they said I have IBS, and then I had anxiety. I couldn't sleep at all. All of these issues that I didn't know were interconnected, and obviously it's getting in the way. And at this time, I know I don't want to be a lawyer anymore, but I don't know what to be, because that was what I wanted to do my whole life. So it was this very like confused time period. So I just started a blog, and I called this blog Eat Feel Fresh. And then that was just my outlet, you know? And then I started to get like really obsessed with it. I was in class, just always blogging, learning how do I grow my following. And this is like before blogging was really popular. It was still kind of like weird that I was doing. And through that process, I started to sign up for nutrition courses outside of school. I did Institute for Integrated Nutrition. I did International Sports Science.
So where's mom and dad at this point?
They're
now
like,
it's getting a little weirder.
Well, they're like, okay, they weren't a fan of vegan, let alone raw vegan. And they could also see I had lost so much weight. Me going to India, they were just kind of apprehensive about. So while I was in India teaching health and sanitation in the slums of Delhi, I decided to go visit an Ayurvedic doctor. And I had heard of Ayurveda in one of my nutrition courses, but I thought it was like a psychic or an astrologist. I didn't think it was like a viable health option.
Yeah.
And the moment she saw me, she's like, Veta, I see you're too pretty to not have baby. I was like, wait, what? How did she know that I don't have my period? Like, she didn't know that. She knew all of my symptoms, from my bones cracking all the time to having thoughts and all of these things that I thought were like random. I realized were interconnected. So I was like, oh, this.
So you were clearly guided to India
guided to India exactly to have that experience. But the thing is, I was like, so what do I do? And she's like, well, if you continue this path, you're already going through premenopause at 21 years old.
Wow.
You're going to get osteoporosis, and you're at risk of Alzheimer's, because my brain wasn't getting nourishment. So she was like, I was like, what do I do? And she's like, well, you have to eat rice and ghee and all of these like really Indian foods, which I didn't want to do. So I decided I would kind of create my own version, and my version would, you know, replace rice with quinoa and ghee with coconut oil and just make it more modern. And then I received the download, I need to write a book about this, because no one's going to come to India and learn this, and what you're learning in India doesn't work.
And this is the book that we see here today.
No, it's not. I wrote a book about Ayurveda before this book.
Oh,
this is like, I don't know how I'm going to explain all of this in this short episode to get to everything else, but basically I wrote a book about Ayurveda. I couldn't find a literary agent for it. I got rejected by 30 publishers. Ended up 2 days after I found this literary agent to represent my former book, Eat Right for Your Mind, Body Type, Penguin Random House called looking for someone to write the Idiot's Guide to Ayurveda. And I had 2 months to write it, and I couldn't use a sentence that was similar to my other book.
Oh,
so
my
think
Lord.
about how well I had to learn Ayurveda to be able to explain the doshas and the dhatus and the koshas and all of these things without repeating myself, because it would have been copyright issues. So I really, really dived in. And I remember, I mean, this whole time my parents are super against my path. At this point, they're like, you're wasting your time. You're writing about these books. You don't have a literary agent. Like, their quote, being an author is like being a starving artist. You're never going to make it. Do you think you're J.K. Rowling? Like, and Persians and Asian parents in general, they're very harsh. They don't sugarcoat things. So they were at this point really pushing me to just get into like real estate or just something to like have a stable job. But I was like, no. And I remember telling them.
Because it was that deeper soul knowingness, or what was keeping you going?
Yeah, deeper soul knowingness. Really being like, no, I'm not going to stop until this book is on the shelves of Barnes and Nobles. And they were like, they're like, you're crazy. Like, no one knows what Ayurveda is. Look here in front of you, you got rejected 30 times. Stop wasting your time. They're like, we're scared for you. We don't want to see you waste your whole life. And we're doing this out of love. And it's true, they were doing out of love, but it was a fear-based love, because all they've experienced in their lives is, you know, my mom's a refugee, you know, seeing all this despair, seeing she never got to follow her dreams and stuff. That stuff is like fluff for them. You do what it takes to survive, and writing a book about a subject that no one's heard about is not survival. So at this point, they were just trying to push me into, my dad was trying to get me to just work for him, just something, or at least get married. And I wasn't doing either. So when I got that book published, I remember finally my dad read it. He's like, you're going to make a lot of money with this book.
Wow.
Like, that's the compliment. Because everything to them is like in terms of how is it going to reciprocate
But
money.
what a beautiful gem, though, for him to outwardly acknowledge, because that's a total pivot.
Total. Well, now, flash forward, this book came out 1 year ago, and I wrote it 2 years ago. And now, like, they hosted my book launch at their house and invited all their friends. And my dad is like, what's the difference between Kapha Pitta and Pitta Kapha? Like, he needs to know all the science of the doshas. So I share this with people, like, because so many of us, we receive, our parents tell us to do certain things, and we don't understand they're coming from such a different day and age where, like, you know, the internet didn't exist, and a lot of these things that we're doing now with social media don't exist. So when you say I'm going to be a blogger, podcaster, they actually have no idea what you're talking about. So that's why they're going to tell you it's not possible.
And so what do you say to people?
Keep on doing it and stay so true to your vision. And if you don't know what your vision is, honestly, maybe have some time apart. I left for a year and was traveling. I lived in Bali for 4 years. I was in India by myself for 6 months. And just, that was like probably the most healing and my soul reboot moment of just, I remember rethinking everything I was taught and then questioning, does that actually make sense, or was that just something that I was told?
Yeah, and I'm just getting the download, which I love, that when we spend time together, we both just, I mean, it's continuous for us whether we're together or not, but like, just got a download right now. It's so cool to me that the new paradigm medicine that you work with is operating on different levels, because I view you more as like this trailblazer with bringing this ancient wisdom of Ayurveda and delivering it in a new, fresh, more modernized way. But you with re-examining those childhood beliefs and the things that your parent put on you, you're creating a whole new paradigm within yourself, whole new paradigm for your family lineage.
Yes.
So new paradigm medicine for you is like everywhere.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm the first person to ever work in my distant relative that's a woman. They've literally never seen this before. It's like, what? You're
just like blowing the walls off of the boundaries or the parameters that were previously there.
Right. But you know, now my grandma goes to unplugged meditation. You know,
Wow.
It's like she was in a child marriage. You know, it's like when you step up, you do the healing for everyone around you. My brother now sees, you know, it's not like a fairy tale of like, oh, follow your dreams, it's possible. He's like, wait, if my sister can write about, he still doesn't get it, like Ayurveda, what? And she's successful at it, then like maybe my dreams could make sense. So I honestly think the universe assigned me to the most random task possible. Like, okay, if you can make this happen, then you can make anything else happen. And you know, now I've written 4 books on Ayurveda, and I just see this as the beginning of spreading so much more.
Totally. And thank you for your honesty and all of that. And the one thing that I knew I had to bring up today, because I just start laughing about this at random times in my life, is when you showed me your Valentine's Day project from kindergarten, and you had written, or you had like created the letters out of macaroni or Scrabble pieces, and you go, so she makes this Valentine's project for her parents, and she's in kindergarten, and it says on it, "I'm not who you think I am."
Happy Valentine's Day.
Like, and that to me, I just love it so much. It's almost just like the embodiment of who you are, though, because I feel like you incarnated this wise soul.
Yeah.
Because as we've talked about, you know, you and a lot of people know about my awakening moment. It was a very distinct one moment in time that shifted the trajectory of my entire life, but it didn't happen that way for you.
No, I kind of came out like, what? I'm not in ancient India anymore? What is this? Cars?
I'm a mystic. How do I use my mysticism this lifetime?
Yes, it's been a lot of relearning.
Interesting. And the other thing that I love about you too is you are just so centered, aligned, and clear in your knowingness of your truth, your strength. You're just like this clear, directed energy force of, I know who I am. And where does that come from? Was that something you had to cultivate?
You know, I've always had, like, passion has always been my word. I've always been a very passionate person. So I guess my whole life growing up, I was all about being an international human rights lawyer, and that was very much who I am. But I went through this period of, after not knowing, where I was like, just open to whatever and really just confused. And I remember reading about Vata, and the characteristics are like confused. Everyone you meet makes you change your mind. And like, you know, I would just ask people like, so what do you think I should do with my life? Like everyone I would meet, you know, I had no trajectory.
So you used to be the opposite.
I went through a period, you know, most of my life I've been, well, actually as a kid I was really shy, but I went through a period for sure that I had no idea. And it took me just really just working. I feel like confidence is something where like, oh, I'm going to repeat, I am confident in the mirror 50 times and I'll be confident.
I love who I am. I love who I am.
And like, I just recorded a podcast about this. Like confidence is doing a good job at what you're doing. And when I saw, oh, I can do this and I'm doing a good job at it, I don't need to hear affirmation from other people. I'm doing a good job at it. And then when I present it to other people, I do. And that's how confidence is earned and gained. So I feel like we need to shift the conversation of like, how can I get more confidence? Like do something that even if you're not good at it, just start doing something. Like what made me shift is I'm always taking action. I was spending a long time thinking and not doing, but you're just going to still end up really airy and confused because there's no solid idea. It's better to move towards a goal that may not be your end goal than to be like, oh, this didn't work. Let me U-turn around and let me try this other way versus just sitting there and thinking about what are the possible directions in the maze.
Yeah, because those steps are that grounded energy.
Yeah, I mean, I had a clothing line that didn't work. I've done so many things that don't work. And through those processes, I see, okay, I'm not the type of person who likes to vend at festivals. I'm not the type of person who likes to work one-on-one with people. And in that process, you figure out who you are, but you're not going to figure out from, you know, manifestation by itself.
I'm of the school of belief that failure doesn't really exist. It's all just information.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know?
Failure is just you giving up on that thing, and that's okay.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So with how powerful you are, does it trigger people?
Yes, of course.
I want to dive into that a little bit.
Yes. I even had, well, I mean, I think we all, when you're someone in your power, it's just like, as you rise up more into knowing who you are, and people who don't know who they are, they see that, and then the part of them that feels unsure gets triggered. So it's not me triggering people, it's perhaps my certainty or my ability to take action that's triggering their inability or their uncertainty. I don't think it's ever something personal.
Right. But it can feel so personal.
It can. Like I was in a situation, like for example, this girl that I had met on Instagram, she's doing amazing things, and I messaged her a few times, no response, emailed her a few times, no response. And then finally she came to an event of mine, and then she opened up and she said, the reason I had never responded is because I'm super jealous of you. And I was like, dude, there's nothing to be jealous about. You're doing amazing things. And then she was like, oh, thanks so much. It was super healing for her. But then she went back to not responding. So I was like, at least now I know that it's not because, like before I created the story, she just hates me. But now I'm realizing she just needs to work on that area in her life. But to be honest, the moment I can like sense like the jealousy bug, boom. I don't wait around. And that's another thing in my life. I don't wait and hold on. Like the moment something's not working, I'm like, bye. So I've had to let go of close friendships because of jealousy related issues, whether it's because of my relationship or whatever else. But that allows space for me to find people like you, and for people who are on their path, or people who are just not triggered by the success of others, but rather rejoice for it.
Yeah. And it activates, like, I mean, I get so excited when you text me certain things or leave me little voice texts, and your celebrations, some of your milestones, and it lights me up inside. And I'm just like, yes, keep rising, keep shining. And I'm so grateful to have you as that same force for me and my life.
Absolutely.
So when it comes specifically to the Ayurveda and you being, like we talked about, a trailblazer, has your way of delivering this ancient wisdom, has it been it's been clearly well received. You have a huge following, you're a best-selling author, but has there been another realm to that where, again, you've had to meet some challenges, maybe some criticism?
Yes. It definitely has happened. Most of the time when it happens from people who've studied a little bit about Ayurveda but are not quite experts in it. So they study the traditional, what Ayurveda says, which is like eat rice and ghee and do all of these things. And then they see that I'm modernizing it. They see that I'm saying it's okay if you eat a salad if you want, because you can't eat salads in India because you'll get sick. And like, you can eat mushrooms. The reason why mushrooms aren't allowed in India is because they were psychedelic mushrooms and the British didn't want them to eat them. Like, I've gone deep into researching these things. So when people who haven't gone that deep see what I'm doing and changing it, they, I say there's like the traditionalists and there's the trailblazers. And these people who identify as very much traditionalists, they're like, we need to protect the roots of Ayurveda and needs to stick to what it is. But I've gone so deep in Ayurveda that I know that 1,000 years ago, it wasn't even what you're reading now.
Right.
Ayurveda means living science. It's always changing. So for you to think the 1800 versions of it is the truth is like saying the Catholic Bible is the truth and not the Protestant Bible and this and that. They're just different renditions of it. But yeah, when people say that, I just know in my heart they haven't gone deep enough in the subject, because the people who are really at top, like Deepak Chopra and Dr. Suhas, they love what I'm doing because they understand it so well that they see that it is something that is open to change.
Yeah, and we don't have to spend a lot of time on this, but I love, you're a really powerful manifester. And one of the things that you manifested is this amazing relationship that you have with Deepak.
Yeah.
How much are you willing to share about that process and how you guys came to be connected, and he's been your amazing mentor and writes the forewords in your book?
It's a long story. I don't know how much time we have. I did a whole episode on my podcast. I'm very open about how it happened because I want to show people I didn't have a family connection. I didn't get introduced to him. He was speaking at an event and I didn't know he was going to be speaking there. And the moment he just waved and said hello and walked off, and I walked onto stage and I walked up to him and I introduced myself to him and I told him what I'm doing, sent him the book. He liked the book. We met up in person. He's like, hey, let's do a challenge together and like be part of my program Jayo. And I also keep the relationship. Like, someone like Deepak is so busy that, you really have to, like, I get people messaging me all the time who come from this like want. And for him, I'm always so respectful of his time. I'm always providing value for him. Like, I will always, anything he needs to promote whatever, I will do it. And I feel like if you want to have like a mentorship type relationship with someone, don't be needy. Don't ask for things. Because I see people like, be my mentor, I have all these issues. Like, does that sound appealing to anyone? If I was like that, no way Deepak would speak to me. You have to be so sure of yourself that he doesn't see you as this inferior person, but as this person who's like rising, and that inspires him too.
Amen, sister.
Yes.
I love that so much. And then the other aspect of your entrepreneurship that I'm so proud of you for, and I always get gems of wisdom from you around, is money. And I love that you are so honest that you used to be, as you say, broke AF, broke as boop. And now you're just thriving in so many different capacities. So are there any business tips or money tips, because you've grown so much in that category of life, that you want to share with people? Like, what's been the most fulfilling way you've made money? Anything like that?
Yeah. I think first it comes down to like rewriting your story with money and like getting down to, I also did an episode on like why financial self-care is such an important aspect of self-care that we don't talk about. But thinking, what was the first time I remember money? Like, what did that story look like? And I remember being a kid at the ice cream store with my dad and my brother. And we would always go to the ice cream store with my mom. And this time my dad was taking me. And I'm like, I want vanilla with sprinkles. And my brother's like, I want chocolate Rocky Road. And my dad's like, pick one flavor. I'm like, no, I like vanilla. He likes chocolate. He's like, no, because a small is like $1.59. But if you get a medium, then we save 60 cents. Like, my dad is very, very like methodical, and like he doesn't like to spend money at all. So my brother and me are like, what do we pick? He's like, pick coffee. We're like, no, we don't. We're like 5 years old. We don't want coffee. And then I remember at that moment being like, I hate not having money because he gets to make the decision and I don't get to get the ice cream I want. And that's how I see it. When money is made by someone else or you give the power to elsewhere, you're not calling the shots in your own life.
Yes.
So you need to think back on what.
It's so disempowering, and codependency.
Codependency. And that's why, you know, before, honestly, I thought, oh, I don't want to make money because I would see my dad so stressed over bills. It's so stressful. It's so masculine. I want to be a goddess, you know? But then realizing that the goddess who has to ask her husband for allowance, that's not very empowered and truly goddessy. Maybe this is a patriarchal version of a goddess. And making money has been the most fulfilling thing I've ever done, the most spiritually expanding thing I've ever done. Because like, you know, today I signed up for like this like weekend long retreat and I'm like buying a flight. Like, could I do this even 3 years ago? No.
It's so liberating.
So liberating. So, and then also another thing with money that my spirit guide of my grandfather told me, he's like, focus on the bigger transactions. Because what I would do when I started was I was like one-on-one coaching, and I would not even create a program with them. It was just one time each. And then I would be happy. Oh, now I'm charging $90. But it's like a $90 here, a $90 there. Sometimes a week would go by. I don't have a client, you know? I focus on bigger transactions. So for me, that looks like programs, that looks like podcasts, that looks like things that I'm not like collecting small bills. I'm writing a book instead, you know?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because your podcast is doing really well.
Yes.
It's the highest self podcast.
Yes.
And I have been on it, and I hope I can, you know, be on it again. And it's doing so well, so highly rated. You've got incredible sponsors, and it grew. I mean, you've been doing it for a year, but I feel like it grew quickly.
I mean, it did. Compare, like, I guess a year is a long time, but there are people who've been podcasting for a year and it doesn't get there. What I think attributed to its growth is, you know, I'm doing it in a way that no one has before. And that's what you have to do with everything in life. If you just cookie cutter what someone else does and you think you're going to get different results, you're not. So with my podcast, it's like, I'm on a walk, I think of an idea, I pick up the mic, I'm like, hey guys, I haven't fully formulated this thought, but I'm going to talk it out. And that's what the episodes look like. But then, and that's also how my best, you know, because I start recording and I have no idea what I'm going to say. I just have like a kind of word in my mind. And then it turns out, like right now I was listening to a podcast, I was like, wow, this is good advice. I literally like don't remember doing them. So, and then again, people don't need to copy that, but I feel like we need to get way more out of the trajectory of what we see as normal. Because if you want to become the Oprah or Deepak or Tony Robbins of the world, those people didn't exist before them. And now we see everyone, I want to be Tony, I want to be Deepak, I want to be Oprah. Be you, you know, because no one's been you before, and you can do you better than anyone else. Exactly. And people want your medicine. They don't want Oprah part 53. Right.
Yes. If I had my rattle, I would rattle. I'll shake some Palo Santo to that. That's so true. I could ask you so many questions, of course. We'll have to wrap soon, but I would love, since this is Soul Reboot, I think, of course, a lot of people know you for your book and your incredible Instagram at I am Sahara Rose. You've got a lot of followers, but the Sahara that I know and love, as I'm just always so blown away at your spiritual gifts and capacities and the way you connect up to source. And can you just touch upon maybe some aspects of your gifts, your spiritual abilities that probably a lot of people don't know about you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, and I tell people all the time, I don't do seated meditations. I don't do like quote unquote like spiritual practices per se. I live my life in a spiritual way. For me, everything is a spiritual practice and everything is a meditation. So I kind of forgave myself about that and was like, I'm just going to be me. So it comes through in words for me. So when I just go on a walk or I do something that I kind of allow a little bit of space, then I kind of start getting ideas. And then for me, it's more contemplation than meditation. So I start contemplating these ideas. I think of myself like a kind of philosopher. And then I'm like, well, what could that look like? And this. And I start thinking, and I'm like, wow, those are really good. And then immediately I'll either start writing it on my phone, or I'll run home, record a podcast episode. If I'm writing a book, like this whole book I channeled. And what channeling looks like is, you know, you do whatever it is you need. For me, that's my Pilates class, eating my, you know, smoothie or whatever. And then I like sit in front of the computer and just let my hands just type without judgment, without editing, without rereading it. And then once I start typing, after a few pages, my hands are moving. I'm like looking around the room and it's just coming through. And I mean, I've obviously had past lives as an Ayurvedic doctor, and that's why I know this stuff, but it can happen with anything. And, you know, they call it automatic writing, for example.
Exactly.
So yeah, you can call it. People don't realize they are channeling all the time. I feel like when we think of channel, we think of Abraham Hicks, and we think of this like being coming through, and we're like, Broop.
Exactly. The movie Ghost and all of that stuff.
But we're all, you know, a pianist playing the piano is channeling, like an actor on stage is channeling. These are all us channeling the source energy that exists inside of us. It's essentially us being the we's that we were meant to be.
Yes, Queen.
Yes.
Well, before we go, you are going to have your second, I know you've written multiple books, but your second one that's going to be out and in stores is going to be out soon. Can you
October,
reveal a little bit about what that
Of course,
is?
yeah. So that book is called Eat, Feel, Fresh. I got the download really to shoot the whole book in India. So in December, I went to India I was imagining it to all be blue. I love the color blue. It's the color of the throat chakra. It's something I'm really attracted to.
And your nails.
Everything's, my whole house is blue, as you've seen. So I went to Jodhpur, the blue city, and I found different photographers on Instagram that I had never met in Varanasi and Kerala also. And we just walked around the street and we're like, let's just see what happened. People invited us to their houses. We were cooking. We were in villages and slums everywhere. And it's like the modern Ayurvedic recipes that saved my life.
Wow.
So it infuses Ayurvedic wisdom, but with a modern approach. I call it alkaline Ayurveda. So it's taking Ayurveda, making it more alkaline for today's world, which is so hyper polluted. Like 5,000 years ago, or even 100 years ago, they didn't have GMOs, they didn't have toxins in the air, they didn't have these things to worry about. So maybe they
chemtrails.
Right. So maybe you could even eat rice and beans all day and not eat greens and be okay. Today, that's not going to fly.
Yeah.
So, and then it also includes recipes from around the world, because when I was studying Ayurveda, I was like, wait, why does it make sense to only eat Indian food and be healthy? What about people in Japan and in Costa Rica and all these blue zones that they're centurions, they live for over 100 years. So it includes recipes from around the world, and then it kind of, they're all tridoshic, so they work for all three doshas, because that was another thing that was confusing people. Like, I'm Vata, my husband's Pitta, my kid's Kapha, what do we eat? Well, in India, I've lived with Ayurvedic doctors. Not each person gets a meal of their own. They share a meal. They just avoid the things that will severely imbalance a certain dosha. So all of the recipes are tridoshic, and they're broken down in the 6 tastes of Ayurveda: sweet, sour, salty, bitter, pungent, and astringent. So it shows you basically how to set up your diet, not just from recipes of this book, but like what are things you could replace it with so you can keep on living this way.
Yeah, it's so good. And the pictures are other level.
Yes, I'm so excited for people to see. I'm imagining it as like half travel book, half cookbook.
Half like coffee table, beautiful book. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's gorgeous. So many exciting things in store for you, Queen.
Thank you.
I am so grateful to you just in life in general, as a friend, and so grateful that you blessed the Soul Reboot set with your energy and presence. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm so honored to be here. I love all of your episodes. I love what you're doing. I've been honored to watch you expand and bloom in the past year, and I can't wait to see Soul Reboot on every YouTube around America.
Yes, amen. And everyone can find you, speaking of Instagram and YouTube and all of that, at I Am Sahara Rose.
I Am Sahara Rose and Highest Self Podcast.
All right, check it out, everyone.